The bears are rattling the cage, guys. There is so much pain and fear out there, but I am here with a good message, okay? Listen, I have been through countless pullbacks, and you know what? They're painful. My portfolio is down too, just like everyone else, and friends are reaching out. They're wanting to know what's going on, and the big question that everyone asks is, when's the sell-off gonna be over? Well, today I'm gonna be giving you the framework that I'm using to predict when I think the market is actually going to bottom, okay? And why am I doing that? Because this is the same type of framework that we used during the pandemic back in March of 2020, where we said, you know what, we think the market's gonna be bottoming right around the 20th of March. We're gonna be using the same type of framework. We're gonna be using sound data, right? We're not gonna be freaking out, okay? We're gonna come up with a game plan. And not only that, I'm gonna be walking you through how I'm gonna be handling the market going forward. So anyway, sit tight and let's get into it. Okay, so have we seen selling like this before? And we have. So I'm going back to our blog post. This is on mapsignals.com. It's free. You can sign up, get this stuff every week's cool. But look, March 4th, 2020, you know what we noticed? Extreme selling, just like we saw this past week. And we flagged it. We're like, look, lots of ETF selling. Now our charts look a little different now because we're automated and stuff, but it's the same data. Stock selling was just intense, right? So Jason and I, we got our heads together and we're like, okay, we noticed that the selling was 8 times larger than what the average is, the 50-day moving average. So we said, man, has this ever happened before? And we found out, going back to 1990, including our back test, that happened 27 times. So I'm gonna save you some time. And basically we found that the market tends to trough out 21 calendar days after a big week of selling. And what's cool about that is this big selling that I'm pointing to, that was at the end of February. 21 calendar days put it at March 20th, 2020. And that is where we said the market was going to trough. And it was one day prior to the S&P 500 hitting its low. So look, we've done this before. We're going to use the same type of framework going forward. All right, so now you saw the framework that we used back during the pandemic lows. And now let's go ahead and look at the data and see if it's actually similar to what we saw back then. And believe it or not, it actually is. Okay, so now we're in the portal and we're looking at the big money index. Most of you guys know that it's been very rotational, right? The BMI has not been picking a direction, but up until last week, that is starting to change. You can see that the S&P has fallen hard, but look at all of the selling, right? It's very similar to the size that we saw back, like I was showing you, the end of February 2020. You can see the same thing with ETFs, right? So again, step away from the headlines. Have we seen selling like this before? We have many times, including the pandemic. So now let's go ahead and start working through our framework. All right, so selling is huge, but the good news is we've seen this before, and you know what? We figured it out. Markets ended up going up higher eventually, and they will at some point. So don't give up, okay? Don't buy into the big bear thesis and all of that, okay? Markets can change on a dime. So what's more important right now is I want to share with you my framework for going forward in the coming days and weeks. And if I had to use our data to try and predict the ultimate trough for the market, let's get into that right now. All right, now it's time to turn that frown upside down because data can speak if you listen. So over the weekend, I went in and I said, man, that was a lot of selling. I wanted to see if we've seen that similar. So last week, 93% of all of our signals were on the sell side, okay? That is a rare event. That is a lot of selling. And I went back and I found that since we've been in business, so since 2014, we've had about 24 times where we've seen selling of this magnitude. So the logical question is, what happens going forward after this? So I wanted to find out, how long did it take for the stock market to trough after big selling? And the cool thing is sometimes that is the trough. Sometimes a sell-off like we experience is the low. But other times, the sell-off continues to last. Like at the end of 2018, sell-off was huge. Also during the pandemic, right? We saw just a lot of selling. It just lasted for a while. Then eventually we troughed. But the average of all of that, you put it all together, it takes about 14 trading days. Okay, so call it 3 weeks, which is very similar to 21 calendar days that we used for the pandemic framework. Okay, so let's revisit that in a second, because here's what's really important. So after a week of selling like that, what's the expected forward return for the S&P? The average for 1 week is up 0.83%, and it's positive all the way out to a year. In fact, a year later, the S&P on average is up about 23%. But here is why you can't get too bearish, because when the trough actually gets here, and it will, it is extremely bullish for markets, right? And the average 1 week return from the trough, S&P jumps about 8%. You go to 3 months, it jumps 16%. In 1 year, it goes up about 33%. And get this, on a 1 month basis, during this small sample set, only one time was the market flat after we reached the trough. So that was a lot of green in that data. So if you stayed with me thus far, you can see that history says big selling often means opportunity. So look, the framework we used during the pandemic, it's very similar to what we're using today. If history is any guide, markets continue to pull back like this, February 11th could be right about where the market trough could be. Now look, I don't know if it'll be right or not, but what I will be doing is on these big nasty pullback days, I'm probably going to be looking for opportunities on great stocks, right? I'm not playing for today, not playing for tomorrow. I'm playing for multiple years out. That is how you win the game of investing. So if you like this content, make sure to like and subscribe. Send us some love, send us some comments. We do this for free. It's all love. And we'll see you guys next time.